Joe, I'm happy to start then. Let's go with the captain, Harry Wilson. What stood out leadership-wise about him, particularly sort of coming off, throwing him into the deep end now the second half of that Springboks game in Perth?
Harry's been really good for us, and I think he's led himself really well. He has a natural propensity to express himself well, but with very few words, and I don't think that we want to be doing too much talking. It's about the actions that he's going to deliver, and lead from the front effectively.
Because Harry's someone that was in doubt for those first couple of games with a broken arm. How have you seen him grow in camp since being back here and back in the Wallabies environment after missing last year?
Yeah, I was disconnected from last year, obviously, but I've found him to be incredibly coachable, committed to his craft, and he's contributed really positively in the overall team environment.
And just on debutant Hamish Stewart, he's a guy that's been around a lot of these camps, but now gets his shot. What do you like about Hamish, and what sort of different dynamic can you add to this back line?
He is a massive team man, Hamish. He's warmed up for every single test we've played so far without getting a run at all. He has contributed to other people being as prepared as we could have them, and it's great that he's got the opportunity now to prepare himself to go out and in a really big arena where the expectations are going to be high, and the pressure is going to be just as high, particularly in terms of Augustine Creevy's potentially his last game by the sound of things, and having brought a few different teams here to Argentina, they're very much emotionally connected as a group, and to the support that they get in the arena.
Joe, someone like a Harry, is he a short-term option as the Wallabies captain, or could he potentially go on a run and make this his own?
Yeah, it's really hard to say, just because we are where we are with the balance of personnel we have at the moment, and even the experience or lack thereof, particularly in terms of being captain at this level. There are other guys who will help him lead his way around the field as well. There's guys who've been provincial captains or super club captains, and there are guys who have accumulated a few more tests than Harry. But in terms of the way he's led himself, and sometimes it's a balance about a guy playing really well in his position, and you just want him to stay focused on what he's delivering really well, rather than distract him with another responsibility.
And then there's other guys, you've mentioned the Super Rugby captains like Jake and Tate and so forth. You made mention of Harry about actions over words. Is that actually is that a big thing for you at the moment, that you just want the talking on the field and nothing else? Because there could have been more obvious picks.
I'm not sure about obvious picks internally anyway. We're pretty happy with the selection amongst the coaching group, and that some of the coaches would know Harry better than I do, and even talking to some of the players about who would be best to step up, there was a lot of confidence around Harry. Jake has played really well for us, and his focus on making sure that he continues to do that. He also chalks up some incredible miles in the game. His ability to get to a ball and then get to the next and get to the next, and we just don't want to break that rhythm for Jake. And there's a few other guys who, as I said before, they're playing well. They're in a really good rhythm, and we don't want to break that, because collectively, again, there's changes and there's a bit of continuity now, and I'm hoping that continuity will allow the performance to be a little bit more cohesive.
Joe, you're playing in La Plata, Estudiantes ground there. It's quite narrow from memory, and it's going to chuck rain. Has that affected your plans in terms of the line out and the way you want to play?
Yeah, it's a little bit like the Perth week at the moment. We had a smashing week all week, trained to be fine weather fast, and then suddenly, but we've seen the forecast from the start of the week, and it's said that there's rain Friday, Saturday. So yeah, it will affect it to a degree. The field is also shorter. So even with your kicking game, if you're kicking long down the middle, or you're kicking into that angled into the corners because of the rain, then you're just going to have to be really accurate with that as well.
Also, obviously, Taniela's back, which is marvellous, after the sad passing of his father. Can you just take us through, obviously, the decision for Taniela to start as opposed to Alan, who has led the team the last 2 tests? Joe, just why maybe the decision for Taniela to start?
Yeah, it's a really tough decision because Alan has played well for us, and he brings a calm leadership to the group. But at the same time, when you're not in the starting 15, you tend to get less reps at training. Alan's already got a pretty good rhythm with us. Taniela's been away. So for Taniela to get the best entry into the game, we just felt that it was better for him to start. You can also control his minutes a little bit more easily as well. If he's coming off the bench, it's a little bit harder to know when to put him on, whereas we'll get an indication and have no hesitation helping Nella with Alan coming off the bench. So we feel like that was just the best way to do it in terms of reintroducing Nella.
And just the final question from me on props, Joe. James Slipper, obviously he's so near that milestone. Was he close to getting in that starting 15 or on the bench, or did you just think, he's been through a fairly tumultuous and amazing time as well, let's give him a bit of a spell?
Yeah, I had the discussion with Slips kind of a couple of weeks ago, really. He was joining us late after his new addition, and that's pretty exciting for him. So he's had enough excitement for 1 week, I think. Again, he's come in and helped other guys prepare really well because he is such a team-orientated, squad-orientated player. So that was already probably a preconceived plan, to be honest.
Thanks, Joe.
Joe, hi there. Tate McDermott yesterday was talking about the narrow approach that you've taken and how he wasn't used to it and he didn't feel the Super Rugby teams played that way. I'm wondering if you've noticed that they're taking a bit longer than you might have thought to adapt. Do you see that there is a big change in tactics from what the Super Rugby teams are? And are you happy with the kind of progress that the teams are making, putting into play what you're trying to do with them?
Yeah, I probably just don't understand narrow, Tony, if you could define that for me in terms of...
It was kind of his talk about that I've not got the exact quote here, but I can grab it. He's saying that it's a different way they want to attack. He said, we play a very expansive game and Joe's plan for us is pretty narrow. When we're narrow, that's the width we want to attack. So it's very direct and a skillful game plan at the line. Our adjustment period is probably not quite where we need it to be in regards to how we play Super Rugby and how we want to play here, because it's very different to how every Super Rugby team plays. I'm just kind of wondering if you do think it's very different to how they've been playing at Super Rugby, whether you've kind of trying to change that up and whether they are adjusting to it. I mean, they're Tate's words, not mine.
Yeah. No, and I think that gives it a better context to understand it. I think one of the things is that we're pretty expansive against Wales and Georgia. I think we were pretty keen to get some width into our game against South Africa in the first one, but it was pretty torrential rain. It was wet in Melbourne as well in the second Welsh test. So, we haven't exactly been blessed with the sort of weather that lends itself to expansive rugby. I think one of the things around playing South Africa the last couple of weeks was around the width. If you stand wide, by the time you've made 2 passes, they land on the second pass receiver and they make your life very difficult for you. So if you can tighten up your passing, force them to come in toward you and then try to play around them or try to play through them, I think you just give yourself a better chance of not being knocked over by big men coming forward at high speed, particularly even through the middle of the field with guys like Jesse Creel and Damien Delonde, even Lacanio Arm, the big men who hit hard, and it's not mentioning the guys like Steph DeToy and the like. So if you're going to start throwing wide passes that they land on you with, you're going to get knocked around pretty quickly. It's such a different level from Super Rugby. I've coached a number of years of Super Rugby and a lot more years of Test Rugby. And if you think you can just supplant one way of playing into a Test arena, I think there's a degree of risk in that. I'm not saying that we don't want to play expansively. We just probably in the last couple of weeks haven't probably had the conditions and don't look like we're going to get the conditions again this week.
Are you happy with the adjustment? I guess there was when you started, you talked about how you needed to find your rhythm very, very quickly. Do you feel you're on course and that you are finding that rhythm, that the players are learning what they need to learn at the speed you want them to?
Yeah, I think if you talk to any coach, they're impatient. They want things adopted quickly, understood quickly, and delivered even faster. So there is a process to that, particularly when we have had a lot of changes from game to game. We are trying to increase the probably the breadth and depth of our player pool, because we know that no matter how hard you try, if you lose a couple of players in one particular position, you immediately become vulnerable if you haven't built that strength and depth. And we're trying to probably cover a number of bases at the same time. Grow the way we the game we play, but also grow the strength and depth of the players who are able to play that game. And then you're also in a competition with 3 of the 4 semi-finalists from the World Cup last year. So you're up against very tough opposition to try to implement anything that is new.
Last one online, guys, if there's anything, and then we'll come to the guys.
Just one more on that. 15 debutants in 2024, and you talked just there about growing the strength and depth. Eddie Jones, when he came in, it was all about a smash and grab at the World Cup, and then he shifted to 2027. With yourself, what's the end game in your mind? Is it British and Irish Lions? Because obviously that's where contract goes. But what are you building the strength and depth towards? Is it that, or is it the World Cup, or do you have like a goal in mind for why all the changes, why the growing of the base?
Yeah, some of the changes, Tony, have been enforced. So they haven't all been by design. They've been by demand, really. But we are, and I know it's paradoxical, but we're trying to take a long-term view with a short-term focus. We're trying to win a test match on Saturday, but we're also trying to take a long-term view and invest in the development of a number of players that we believe will be able to provide a base of players for the Wallabies through to the Lions and through to that 2027 World Cup, which has to be part of any long-term planning, because it's going to be a massive opportunity to showcase the game and promote the game and be really competitive in the game in Australia itself.
Thanks, guys. Anything in the room?
Yes, here.
Can I start one?
Oh, sorry, mate, we're just running out of time. I've got to get Joe here, and there's some guys in the room.
Fair enough.
Yeah, we can take one, Mel. Sorry. Yep.
Oh, I was just going to say, you mentioned about the Pumas playing in the semi-final. I mean, historically, Australia had always done well against Argentina, but do you arrive sort of in this match as very much the underdogs? I mean, they've got that win over New Zealand. Have things sort of changed, I suppose, in that regard?
Yeah, it's not something that I overly focus on. I think externally, it's people have perceptions of how the game might go and who might be favourite and who might not be. I did have a chat to Felipe Contepomi a little bit earlier. I know Felipe well, and I think we're both pretty pragmatic as coaches. We're just trying to win the moments during the week that we need to invest in, and then try to be as competitive as we can be on Saturday. And the perceptions externally, we try not to be too affected by them. Obviously, Argentina won in Australia last year and got further into the World Cup, obviously, than Australia did. So in recent times, even in terms of their competitiveness against the All Blacks, I thought while the All Blacks got away on them in the first half, in their second game, it was 7-7 in the second half, and to spend a half that was 7-7 with what was a pretty rampant All Black team, I thought was an indication of just how formidable the Puma are currently.